Hello friends, from today onwards, every Sundays we will be having a recorded session of class specially for NET and JRF aspirants. So today we are starting with early English literature. So we can divide it into three periods, that is archaic, classical and Hellenistic. Archaic period starts from 9th century BC to 5th century BC. We have Homer, who have written the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad, it is an epic set against the Trojan War. It deals with the fighting between Agamemnon and Aeschylus. The Odyssey, it is a sequel to the Iliad. It tells a journey of Odysseus to Ithaca after the fall of Troy. So, you have to give importance to Homer in the archaic period. That starts from 9th century BC to 5th century BC. Homer's the Iliad and the Odyssey. The next is a classical period, which starts from the 5th century to 4th century. And we have the tragedians here, Aeschylus, Sophocles and Euripides. Aeschylus is known as the father of tragedy. He introduced the second actor, and his famous trilogy is called the Oresteia. And the Oresteia consists of Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and the Eumenides. So, this trilogy consists of the story of Agamemnon, who is killed by Clytemnestra and her lover. Clytemnestra is a twin sister of Helen of Troy. And what happens is that Agamemnon's children, Orestes and Electra, take revenge upon her. Orestes kills Clytemnestra, and Orestes is haunted by Eumenides. So, in the case of Aeschylus, you have to remember the trilogy, the Oresteia, which consists of Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and the Eumenides. He is a father of tragedy and he introduced the second actor. Next is Sophocles. He introduced the third actor. He is known for the Theban trilogy, which consists of Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone. Oedipus is born to Laius and Jocasta, and there was a prophecy of the oracle that he will be brought up by a childless couple, not by his real father and mother. And at the end, he will kill his father and will marry his mother and has also children by her. Oedipus, by realizing the truth, he blinds himself. So that's what happens in this Oedipus Rex and Oedipus at Colonus. And Antigone. Oedipus' 4 children are Polynesius, Eteocles, Antigone and Ismene. Polynesius and Eteocles fight with each other for the crown after the death of Oedipus, and they kill each other. Creon, their uncle, becomes the next king and orders to deny a proper burial for Polynesius and punishment for anyone who dares to defy the order. Antigone, their sister, manages to bury Polynesius, and as a result she is convicted to death. So you have to remember the Theban trilogy of Sophocles, Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus and Antigone. And he introduced the third actor. Next is Euripides. Euripus is known for the work Medea, the story of Medea's revenge on her husband Jason, who left her for another woman. And what does Medea do? Medea kills her sons, the bride, as well as her father. So these are all about the three tragedians. Next is Aristophanes. Aristophanes is known as a stalwart of old comedy, and he's known for his works The Clouds, The Frogs. The Clouds is a comedy lampooning intellectual fashions in classical Athens. The Clouds can be considered not only the world's first extant comedy of ideas, but also a brilliant and successful example of that genre. The play gained notoriety for its caricature of Socrates ever since its mention in Plato's Apology as a factor contributing to the philosopher's trial and execution. So you have to remember the name of Aristophanes, which is connected to the works The Clouds, The Frogs. Next is Menander. Menander, his works led to the comedy of manners, a new comedy which led to the comedy of manners. Next, another important writer is Pindar. He's a Greek lyric poet from Thebes, and he's famous for his odes. And there are three types of stanzas: strophe, antistrophe, and epode. And variation of Pindaric called Irregular Ode by Abraham Cowley. Next is Plato. Plato established the academy in 387 BC. He wrote 36 Socratic dialogues, all of which were written as a conversation between Socrates and someone else. And these include Republic, Ion, Phaedrus. Republic puts forward the concept of an ideal state. Next, Aristotle. Aristotle founded Lyceum. He has his 27 dialogues, which is modeled on Plato. Poetics, Rhetoric, Nicomachean Ethics. Poetics is very important. Aristotle's Poetics seeks to address the different kinds of poetry, the structure of a good poem, and the division of poem into its component parts. He defines poetry as a medium of imitation that seeks to represent or duplicate life through character, emotion, or action. Aristotle defines poetry very broadly, including epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, dithyrambic poetry, and even some kinds of music. According to Aristotle, tragedy came from the efforts of poets to present men as nobler or better than they are in real life. Comedy, on the other hand, shows a lower type of person and reveals humans to be worse than they are in average. Epic poetry imitates noble men like tragedy, but has only one type of meter, unlike tragedy, which can have several and is narrative in form. Aristotle lays out 6 elements of tragedy: plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. Plot is the soul of tragedy because action is paramount to the significance of a drama, and all other elements are subsidiary. A plot must have a beginning, middle, and end. It must also be universal in significance, have a determinate structure, and maintain a unity of theme and purpose. Plot also must contain elements of astonishment, reversal, it is called peripetia, recognition, and suffering. Reversal is an ironic twist or change by which the main action of the story comes full circle. Recognition is a change from ignorance to knowledge, usually involving people coming to understand one another's true identities. Suffering is a destructive or painful action which is often the result of a reversal or recognition. So all three elements combine to create catharsis, which is the engenderment of fear and pity in the audience. Pity for the tragic hero's plight and fear that his fate might befall us. When it comes to character, a poet should aim for four things. First, the hero must be good and thus manifest moral purpose in his speech. Second, the hero must have propriety or manly valor. Thirdly, the hero must be true to life. And finally, the hero must be consistent. Tragedy and epic poetry fall into the same categories: simple, complex, driven by reversal and recognition, ethical or moral, or pathetic, passionate. And there are a few differences between tragedy and epic, however. First, an epic poem does not use song or spectacle to achieve its cathartic effect. Second, epics often cannot be presented at a single sitting, whereas tragedies are usually able to be seen in a single viewing. Finally, the heroic measure of epic poetry is hexameter, where tragedy often uses other forms of meter to achieve the rhythms of different characters' speech. Aristotle also lays out the elements of successful imitation. The poet must imitate either things as they are ought to be, or things as they ought to be. The poet must also imitate in action and language, preferably metaphors or contemporary words. Errors come when the poet imitates incorrectly and thus destroys the essence of the poem, or when the poet accidentally makes an error, a factual error, for instance. Aristotle does not believe that factual errors sabotage the entire work. Errors that limit or compromise the unity of a given work, however, are much more consequential. Aristotle concludes by tackling the question of whether the epic or tragic form is higher. Most critics of this time argued that tragedy was for an inferior audience that required the gesture of performers, while epic poetry was for a cultivated audience which could filter a narrative form through their own imaginations. In reply, Aristotle notes that epic recitation can be marred by overdone gesticulations in the same way as a tragedy. Moreover, tragedy, like poetry, can produce its effect without action. Its powers is in the mere reading. Aristotle argues that tragedy is in fact superior to epic because it has all the epic elements as well as spectacle and music to provide an indulgent pleasure for the audience. Tragedy, then, despite the arguments of other critics, is the high art for Aristotle. Next, we are coming to the Hellenistic period, which is still the 2nd century BC. Here we have Virgil, who is a Roman poet. He is known for eclogues and georgics. The Aeneid is known as a national epic of Rome, which is modeled after the Iliad and Odyssey. It tells a story of the Trojan refugee Aeneas. And Virgil, you have heard that Virgil appears as Dante's guide through hell and purgatory in Dante's Divine Comedy. You have to connect things like this, then only you will learn. Okay, then next is Horus. Horus is known for his homostrophic odes. He is known for his work Ars Poetica, Epistle to Piso. Next is Ovid. Ovid is known for her Ars Amatoria, that means the art of love, how to find and keep a lover. Next is Metamorphosis. It tells over 200 tales taken from Greek and Roman mythology. Next is Seneca. Senecan tragedy refers to a set of ancient Roman tragedies. The group include Hercules, Furens, Medea, Troilus, Phaedra, Agamemnon, Oedipus, Phoenice, Thyestes, Hercules, Orteus, and Octavia. The two great but very different dramatic traditions of the age, French neoclassical tragedy and Elizabethan tragedy, both drew inspiration from Seneca. Usually, the Senecan tragedy focuses heavily on supernatural elements. Next, we have Platus, who is a Roman playwright of the Old Latin period. His comedies are the earliest surviving intact works in Latin literature. The word Plautine refers to both Plautus's own works and works similar to or influenced by his. He's known for his comedies like Greek New Comedy, Amphitryon, and Menechemi. Next is Terence. His comedies were performed for the first time around 170 to 160 BC. Terentius Lacanus, a Roman senator, brought Terence to Rome as a slave, educated him, and later on, impressed by his abilities, freed him. Terence apparently died young, probably in Greece or on his way back to Rome. All of the 6 plays of Terence wrote have survived. One famous quotation from Terence reads is, "Homo sum humani nihil aemi alienum puto," or "I am a human and I think nothing human is alien to me." So this appeared in his play Houton Timiromenos. So English language developed from the dialects of Germanic tribes. We have 4 major dialects: Northumbrian, Mercian, West Saxon, and Kentish. And West Saxon is considered to be the standard dialect used in text. We have the famous Beowulf, which is the oldest epic. It was written in 7th century AD. It is included in Novel Codex. It has 3,182 lines and it tells a story of the Geatish hero Beowulf. The first part tells Beowulf kills the monster Grendel and also his mother. And the second part tells Beowulf, he's now the king of Geats. He gets wounded when fighting with a dragon. Seamus Heaney translated Beowulf. Okay. Then next writer is Cadman. He's known as a father of Old English poetry. Details about his life are in Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English Race. There is a school of Christian poetry called Cadmonian School. He's famous for his work Hymn. Next writer is Cynewulf. He's known for his religious poetry, Juliana, Eleni, Christ II. Elegies. It is published in Exeter Book, Dior, Wolf, and Edwaiser, The Wife's Lament, The Husband's Message, The Ruin, The Wanderer, The Seafarer. All these are written by anonymous writers. Next is Venerable Bede. He's known for Ecclesiastical History of English Race in 5 books. Next is King Alfred the Great. He translated Bede's Ecclesiastical History and also started work on the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Next writer is Alfric. Alfric is known for Catholic Homilies and Life of the Saints. Next is Wulfstan. He is known for his sermons and his works are Sermon of the Wolf, Martyrology. Okay, so that's all for today's session. We have learned 3 periods: Archaic, Classical, and Hellenistic. In Archaic period, you have to remember the name Homer, his Iliad and Odyssey, and when it comes to Classical period, you have to remember Aeschylus, his trilogy, the Oresteia, and Sophocles, his Theban trilogy, and Euripides' Medea. Then we have Aristophanes, the clouds, the frogs, Menander, Pindar, Plato, Aristotle. Aristotle's poetics is very important. You have to know each and every points of from the poetics. And during Hellenistic period, we have Virgil, Horace, Ovid, Seneca, Platus, and Terence. And next, coming to the dialects of English, we have West Saxon as a standard dialect. Then we have said about Beowulf. Then the writers Cadman, Cynewulf, Venerable Bede, King Alfred the Great, Alfric, and Wulfstan. Thank you. And the next recorded session will be on the next Sunday. Stay tuned. Thank you.